Could China be facing a significant strategic setback in the Pacific at a time when attention remains focused on Beijing's military ambitions toward Taiwan? The decision by the Solomon Islands' new government to review its security pact with China is now drawing international attention. One of China's most controversial security agreements in the Pacific is suddenly facing renewed scrutiny, with the Solomon Islands announcing a review of the secretive pact that sparked concerns across the region when it was first signed in 2022. In a move that has surprised many observers, the new leader of the Solomon Islands made Australia the destination of his first overseas visit and signaled a possible reset in relations, potentially reshaping the balance between Canberra and Beijing in the South Pacific. The development is also being viewed through the lens of broader geopolitical competition, with some analysts asking whether Western allies have secured an unexpected diplomatic opening in the Pacific just as China's regional influence faces fresh questions. The Solomon Islands has announced a review of its secretive 2022 security treaty with China, bringing renewed attention to one of Beijing's most controversial agreements in the Pacific. The move was ordered by newly elected Prime Minister Matthew Wale, who had previously argued that the details of the agreement should be made public. Wale's decision to revisit the pact comes shortly after taking office, signaling a potential shift in the Solomon Islands' approach to its relationship with China. The agreement had triggered concern in both the United States and Australia, which feared it could eventually facilitate a Chinese military presence in the South Pacific. The latest development was reported by the Associated Press on June 3, as the new government began reviewing the treaty's provisions. The review comes amid continued speculation about China's long-term military ambitions, including the possibility of future action against Taiwan. It also follows recent high-level discussions in which Xi Jinping reportedly warned Donald Trump that US involvement in Taiwan-related issues could increase the risk of conflict. Prime Minister of Solomon Islands said, and I quote, "I've been praying and fasting about it. There is a non-disclosure clause in it. So I couldn't show it to you right away. But we are going to be reviewing the treaty, as we are reviewing other security agreements that we have with many other countries." The Solomon Islands' review of its China Security Pact has revived debate over an agreement that previously alarmed both the United States and Australia because of its potential strategic implications for the Pacific region. Prime Minister Matthew Wale chose Australia for his first overseas visit after taking office, a decision widely seen as a signal of the importance he places on ties with Canberra. During the visit, the Solomon Islands and Australia agreed to pursue what both leaders described as a reset in bilateral relations after several years of strain. Wale and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also announced plans to deepen cooperation across a range of areas, including security, economic development, and regional engagement. Both leaders emphasized that Pacific nations should play the leading role in managing regional security challenges and shaping the future of the Pacific. China-Solomon Islands deal. The Solomon Islands significantly deepened its relationship with Beijing in 2019 when it switched diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China, marking a major strategic victory for Beijing in the Pacific. Since then, China has expanded its security cooperation with the Solomon Islands, including the deployment of police trainers under bilateral agreements between the two countries. The 2022 Security Pact also allowed for Chinese ship visits, stopovers, and logistical replenishment operations in the Solomon Islands. Critics of the agreement argued that its provisions could create a pathway for longer-term Chinese security presence in the South Pacific. Those concerns fueled debate in Washington, Canberra, and other regional capitals about the possibility of future Chinese military access in the Pacific. The review of the pact comes at a time when tensions are also rising between China and regional actors including Japan and the Philippines, particularly around areas near Taiwan. China has responded to Japan-Philippines boundary talks with expanded sea patrols, increasing the presence of maritime security vessels to assert its claims and to signal displeasure at discussions it views as encroaching on waters Beijing considers linked to Taiwan. Chinese Coast Guard vessels carried out patrols in waters east of Taiwan on June 1, moving through strategic sea lanes and conducting visible operations intended to deter rival activity and monitor approaches to the island. The development was reported by the South China Morning Post on June 1, which cited official and open-source tracking that documented the uptick in Chinese maritime movements around the sensitive area. China launched the countermove after Japan and the Philippines began discussing waters east of Taiwan, treating those negotiations as a challenge to Beijing's asserted maritime rights and responding with patrols and warnings to reassert control. Beijing views Taiwan as part of China and therefore lays claim to the waters around the territory, a stance that underpins Chinese maritime activity and shapes its responses to any foreign presence or bilateral deals in the region. Speculation of an impending Taiwan invasion has increased since Trump's recent trip to China, with analysts warning that high-profile diplomatic engagements and public rhetoric can feed uncertainty and accelerate precautionary military posturing across the Taiwan Strait. Xi Jinping openly warned the US against interfering over Taiwan, cautioning that outside intervention risks sparking conflict and urging Washington to respect what Beijing describes as its core interests and sovereign claims. The spokesperson of China's Coast Guard said, and I quote, "This is a necessary action taken in response to Japan and the Philippines' unilateral announcement of the launch of maritime boundary delimitation negotiations in waters east of China's Taiwan Island, which seriously infringes upon China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests. We urge Japan and the Philippines to immediately cease all illegal actions that infringe upon China's sovereignty and rights." Unquote. China said it would continue to strengthen control over relevant waters, pledging to increase patrols, enforcement activities, and maritime presence to assert its claims and deter what it views as unauthorized foreign actions. Beijing added that it would safeguard territorial sovereignty and maritime rights, vowing to use diplomatic, legal, and operational measures to protect what it describes as core national interests and to resist any attempts to undermine its jurisdiction at sea.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.